Once again I get to greet you. It's been quite a while. What a ride
So you guys are in the hot seat, clearly dealing with the hottest topic according to our word cloud.
It feels cold.
It feels cold. It's true. All right, so we have a very diverse panel. It's going to be interesting, and we're going to try and connect the dots, right, between what the world's largest OTA is doing around sustainability, and then how a corporate buyer like Brenda is thinking about it. And then we got two hoteliers from very extreme spectrum, right? Marcus manages, is it 1,800 rooms plus a convention center?
2030.
2,200 is even bigger than I thought. And Andrew that runs 2 private islands with 38 villas and houses. So let's start with you, Danielle. You started at Booking.com, and you were supporting its accelerator programs for startups in sustainable travel, right?
Yeah.
But now your role has evolved. So what is your top priority right now?
Yeah, so that evolution, actually my evolution on Booking and Booking's evolution on sustainability really go hand in hand. When I started 5 years ago, we were looking at sustainability outside of our core business and how we could innovate in sustainable travel. And since then, we've really brought it to the core of our business. So now I lead the sustainability team since February, and we look across our 3 strategic pillars, which is operating sustainably and really bringing sustainability to the culture of our employees and the way we work. It's about making sustainable travel easier for our consumers, making those choices easier. That's where I think we can have the biggest impact. And then about collaboration to really catalyze that sustainable travel growth, because we don't want one sustainable platform, but we actually want a sustainable industry.
Okay, great. Okay, so now, Brenda, I met your global head, Karen, right? At that time, she was talking about how sustainability is top of agenda, and she basically said that you have set stringent targets on carbon reductions, which was like limits on number of people attending events, that you shouldn't fly if there is rail, and no day trips, and that was the global policy. So how is this impacting your travel, meetings, and events practice in Asia?
I think ultimately what we are trying to do here is to drive behavioral changes. You know, having people to think about the purpose of travel, as opposed to, you know, before 2019, where you just hop onto a plane and travel, you know, for various purposes. So driving behavioral changes to travelers and also to approvers who approve travel, having them to think about the purpose of their travel and whether there are more sustainable ways to do it. So eliminating day trips, you know, we have about 18% of our trips that are on day trips. That's something that we have seen. I mean, we know that, you know, back in 2.5 years ago, there's no trips happening. So day trips is something that we fully, you know, want it to be on our policy to eliminate that altogether. And of course, where there's alternative way as opposed to air travel, where rail is a possible option, we want people to take that. Another important thing that we do for approvers is to give them sufficient information for them to make an informed decision about approving travel. So one of the things that we have done on technology part is to give them that information. So being able to track the number of people going to one specific meeting, have them think about it. Is it necessary for 10 people to attend? Or maybe limit it to 6 people, and some of them can join in virtually.
Right. Okay. So, you know, you're not alone in coming up with these targets. I was looking at the Oxford University, and they've just approved a new travel policy, which was effective August. And let's look at, let me share a chart on what they're trying to do, which is a flight reduction target of 20%, travel by rail again, and a flight levy charge at this, right? So clearly, organizations are putting in place this kind of target. So Marcus, as a hotelier in Singapore, which completely depends on air connectivity, oh yeah, that's road to Malaysia, or there's, what else is there? There's ferries, of course. How are you responding to these policies as a hotelier?
Well, I mean, as a hotelier in my sporting days, so you can only control the controllables. So what other companies are doing, we cannot influence, but what we can do is make sure that what we're doing in our own properties is being as sustainable as we can. So to make sure that we're then the first choice for that traveller. So for example, you know, in our complex we have an aquaponics farm where we grow our own fish and vegetables. And you know, when you tell a corporate account or a PCO that, you know, your green leaves that you're eating today in your conference were grown on level 5. So the only carbon footprint they had was coming from level 5 up to level 70 or to level 4. You know, we introduced Swiss Pro filtered water into our guest rooms at Fairmont South Tower and also in our convention centre. We've got motion sensors in our rooms, so everything turns off when there's no motion. We have EcoWiz system in our kitchens where we turn food waste into compost. So we can do, what we need to do is concentrate on what we can do best and make sure that we do it better than our competitors to ensure that we're then the first choice for that traveller.
Okay, and Brenda, is that enough? As a corporate buyer and the hotelier reels off all these things that they're doing, does that then sway you to say, okay, I'm going to go with this hotel versus another?
Yeah, I think I would say there could be more things that could be done.
Oh, we do more. I didn't say all of it. Sorry, go on.
Yeah, I think a lot have been done on the travel part, but when it comes to even planning for meetings, events, I think we had the conversation earlier. It's not easy to be able to understand, how do we define a sustainable meeting event? And that's something that we probably need a lot of support from, suppliers like yourself.
Right. I was sharing with Brenda that actually we are doing an event audit on this event for the first time as well. And I can tell you that the process, and we're doing it with Thrust Carbon, which won our startup of the year last year. And the process isn't easy. It's complicated. It took quite a few meetings, but we had very good partner in Thrust Carbon and also Marina Bay Sands, which helped us to get that. And we will share that event audit tomorrow. Okay. So, as you say, not easy. But Andrew, your islands are very, very far to get to. I'm just kidding. But yeah, I mean, for those outside Singapore, right? So you got to take a flight, you're going to take a boat, then you got to take a car, and then a boat again, right?
Yeah.
Do you feel that leisure travel will be affected less by such considerations from, people like Oxford University?
Yeah, I mean, we don't see. We're only doing leisure travel, so I can't sort of compare it to any corporate.
Yeah.
But what we're trying to focus on is get people to stay longer, because by extending the stay, we're reducing our carbon significantly. The guest uses 3 times the carbon on the short boat ride to our island than they do for the entire stay on the property, just the boat trip.
Okay.
And we can control that, but actually there's very little we can do to reduce that much more than what we've already done.
Unless you move to electric boats,
Yeah,
and you
but
were
that
looking at electric seaplane.
Yeah, yes. And we're working on those, and we're really interested in all of that sort of concepts, and that changes the game for us longer term, but that's not available now.
All right, so we have a question from the audience, and please WhatsApp me your questions. So we said, so clearly one panel, and we are not expecting to answer the call for sustainable travel from one panel, but in your opinion, is travel as an industry doing enough? Danielle.
Well, I've seen, one panel, but I've seen every panel today talk about sustainability. So I'm not going to say that it's enough, but it's a huge evolution from a few years ago where sustainability was, tucked in the corner with 10 seats or maybe even no seats. So the awareness is there, it's really raising, and there's really intention behind what we're working on. I think there's a long way to go both on the supply side and on the consumer side, awareness, education, some things that we need to unpack, but I think if we continue on that journey, we actually have an opportunity here, and we need to take that opportunity now.
Okay, so if we could do more, what is the one thing that you feel that we could be doing more of? So let's start with Marcus. Other than your hotel doing its bit, what do you think the industry can do more of, like one thing?
Well, I think we can communicate a lot better to what we actually do. Because I think there's a lot of things that we do that probably go unnoticed, or we don't probably shout about it enough. I think though there's many things. I mean, I mentioned our aquaponics farm. I can't believe that no other or very little hotels around the world have put in hydroponics or aquaponics, because it's just such a no-brainer. You're giving your guests a far superior product in a place like Singapore than what you can buy in, because 90% of produce into Singapore is bought in.
Okay.
So, there's got to be more of this sort of
So more aquaponics farms on hotels.
Hydroponics,
Okay.
aquaponics.
Brenda, what do you think the travel can be doing more of to help you?
It's a really good point about communication and raising the awareness. That education piece, I think, is one of the critical part, because how many people out there, I mean, we are all in the travel world, we do understand the importance of sustainability in corporate travel world, but what does that mean for, I guess, for the end users, for travelers themselves? Do they really understand what they can do to chip in that bit to protect the earth? Probably that's the bit that I feel that there needs to be more education on.
Okay, so more education for the traveler. All right. So we have another question. So will EY...
Can I
Oh, sorry. I'm sorry.
I
Go on.
don't think
Yes.
we're doing nearly enough.
Yes.
You know, I think that there's so much more that we should be doing. There's a lot of low-hanging fruit, and you know, we haven't even started, and there's too much marketing and pitching of what people intend to do, and there's very little action on the ground. So
what
I'm
is the
sorry.
lowest hanging fruit that we should
Turning
be
up the aircon.
Okay, turning up the aircon. All right.
No, but there are a lot of little simple things that could be done, and I think we're talking too much and not doing.
Right. So hopefully by talking about it, we will translate that into action, right?
Yeah, that's a good start, and we've moved on a long way. So yeah.
Okay. All right. So we have a question. Before I get to the audience question, I want to ask Danielle, because we definitely going to see regulation come into our industry, right? So how does our industry get ahead of it before we get regulated? And I know you're part of this Travelist coalition. What's the biggest challenge that coalition is facing?
Well, there's a couple of things on that question. I think on one side, the responsible regulation related to sustainability is good to make sure that there's guardrails in place, that we're evolving in a sustainable way, and then also to make sure that standards are there so that consumers can actually trust the sustainability claims that are being made and that they're translated to action in those pieces. And I think we recognize that. So what we need to do is work together. Travelist Coalition is a really good example, and to explain what that is, we were a founding partner of this coalition that this was Skyscanner, TripAdvisor, Trip.com, Visa, Google, and Expedia joined this year. And the idea is that we can really shape that industry together, inform regulation, and make sure that we have a common definition of sustainable travel that has impact, that is something that's clear across the whole industry, and that we can actually move forward together. And I think that's what we need to do to really prepare in a good way.
Right, so that we don't end up confusing the customer more with different kinds of...
It's all about making it easier, and different definitions and different methodologies are not making it easier. We have to have one clear approach, and we need to move forward together in lockstep.
Okay, so a question for EY. Will you introduce an annual carbon allocation per traveler to control the overall emissions from travel?
Repeat that question again, don't mind.
Will you introduce an annual carbon allocation per traveler?
Not been discussed yet, but that's something interesting that I think probably can further look at, to be honest.
Okay. So the thing is, though, like for a company like EY, you have 4,000 staff alone in Singapore, right?
Yeah, but let me maybe just enhance that answer a little bit more. What
Can you put your microphone closer?
I think what we are doing is, although we have not really been there, however, what we have done internally is we want people to be visible of what they have done in terms of their own actions. So when I say that is, we have also created personalized dashboard for travelers. So imagine having a dashboard coming to you, your way, every month or every quarterly, depending on how much you travel. We only send this out to probably people who travel more than an X number of times, in a quarter. We send them the dashboard to tell them, this is what you're contributing, what you could have done better. And accompanied with other things like compliance, etc., to be more visible, to make that traveler be more self-aware of what he has done and what he could have done better.
So Danielle, do you think, therefore, if EY can do it for their corporate travelers, could OTAs get together to offer a personalized dashboard to your customers?
It's definitely something that we can do. I think what we need to focus on right now is actually building that sustainable offer and really unpacking what sustainable travel means to a consumer. So there's a lot of work that needs to happen there before we really focus on the consumer themselves. And so we haven't mentioned it, but we launched our Travel Sustainable program last year. It recognizes properties that are taking sustainable efforts. And if they reach a threshold of impact, they receive the badge. Even if they're not receiving the badge, we still showcase what they're doing. This is what we need to start to do to actually define sustainable travel, recognize the properties that are doing it, build that supply by supporting them to actually increase their sustainability efforts, recognizing, great partners like the ones on the stage that are doing amazing things. And then once that's there, we can actually start to drive that consumer demand. We don't want to push that first, get consumers really engaged with sustainability, and then have them say that they can't find them, because that's what's happening now. 3/4 of travelers say they want to travel sustainably. About 40% of them say they can't find a sustainable option. So we need to make them findable before we do that.
Right. So I think it's great that we're actually talking about sustainability as definitely like the oxygen of our business already. But the truth is, Andrew, you've had no income for the last 2 years, basically, right? And Marcus too. And now the business is like rushing back, right? So how practical is it now for you to actually just look at sustainability, because you got to build back your business with money?
Yeah, I mean, first couple of months after we opened up, I guess it wasn't a big focus, but we had enough other things to sort out. But now we're back doing it. I've just hired a sustainability manager, and we're back on track where we were.
Right.
One of our properties just gone through a certification process with the long run, which we're members of, and we've gone up a level on that. And so, yeah, we're back doing it just like we did before, and got a roadmap as to what we want to do. So.
Okay. Yeah. And Marcus, you've just come out of F1. Like the best revenues ever, I think this September, higher than 2019. So, that just managing with that overwhelming demand, does that put sustainability in the back seat, or is it always there in the background, humming away?
Yeah, the demand has obviously come back much quicker than what we anticipated. But we appointed a director of sustainability back in January this year, because we wanted to make sure, as we're coming out of the pandemic, that we were ready, and that we were still focused on what other initiatives we can put in place. And by having her in that role, she's really the driver that's driving all the initiatives that we have had and will have in the complex. So that has really assisted.
Okay. So Brenda, we have a lot of travel tech startups in the room. Part of WiT is like having startup competitions, and last year we had Thrust Carbon win. But if there were startups in the room here, what do you think is the biggest pain point they could help solve for you as a corporate buyer in terms of sustainability?
I think, again, back to what we have discussed earlier, probably the biggest pain point for me now is meetings and events. To be honest, in having to understand what do we mean by a sustainable meeting. I think we have heard, what suppliers, with our hotel partners, what they have done. But how do I measure that? So if I were to put forward, a proposal to our meeting requesters, to get them to consider one location to another, a destination versus another, the information, the data will help us to drive conversations. And that is the biggest challenge for me so far, because I think, different partners may have different ways of tracking. We understand, all these things, but it's just hard to put them into data and measurements for us to be able to demonstrate that.
Okay, well, there's an opportunity for the startups to help you solve. So the other thing is I have a question from a journalist in the audience, but anyway, been speaking to travel journalists and commentators, right? And there was a feeling that maybe during the pandemic, maybe the travel industry could have done a better job to prepare travelers for the return, right? And we were spending lots of money sort of just telling people to yearn for travel, but not really kind of to prepare them when they return, maybe to be kinder or to travel differently. Do you think we could do more? Because we're talking about communication. Do you think we could do more in that respect?
To me, yeah, absolutely. I think for me, one of the things that we really struggle with is actually to focus on holistic sustainability. When it comes to sustainable travel, we talk a lot about the environment, which is key, it's important, it's urgent, it's measurable, but we're not also talking about the socioeconomic elements of sustainable travel, which we saw really suffer during the pandemic with the disappearance of travel. We see how the impact on the economy, we see the impact on connectedness, we see the impact on culture. And so with travel coming back, I think we really need to focus on that holistic sustainability and communicate more to travelers that sustainable travel is about enhancing that positive impact that travel brings and mitigating the negative one, and letting travelers understand that sustainable travel is that whole piece coming together. It's not just about flights and hanging up towels, but it's really much broader than all of this.
So if you were a tourism board, Andrew, pretend that you are marketing Bintan or Indonesia, right? What should you be doing in terms of marketing, communicating with customers coming to Indonesia, rather than just selling, the temples or the people or whatever?
In terms of
communicating with customers to return to Indonesia.
on a sustainability.
How do they return better? Like, to help Indonesia, maybe every destination is trying for a reset, right?
Yeah.
And say we want to be cleaner, we want better travelers.
Yeah.
So
well, actually, I've been amazed. The guests that we've seen coming back have been enormously respectful and grateful and been so much nicer in many ways. So I think we've learned to have a lot more respect for each other, I think, through the pandemic. I don't actually think that's so much of an issue. I've seen some really lovely acts of kindness through our staff, and guests that are repeats have recognised that our staff have gone through a tough time, and the tips have been fantastic. And I don't think the service has been where it should be, but
the tips have been fantastic. Okay, so people
are feeling generous, and they're feeling like, oh, you guys have had a tough time, so how can we help? And
I wonder if Marcus would feel the same way, because you probably attract a different kind of traveler going to your private islands, and Marcus is like running 2,200 rooms. Do you find that customers are actually much more respectful, maybe using less water, using less electricity?
Look, the majority of customers are, we obviously still have an element there that, try and push it. But, as being part of a core, Sebastian Bazan came out earlier this year and said we'll have no single-use plastic in our hotels from 2023. So we're very busy at the moment trying to get rid of that. And when you really drill down and work out, it's not just your plastic bottle in your conference room or in your room. There is so much plastic in so many different things. So it's a huge undertaking, but that's a big commitment. I think it just goes to show Accor's commitment to sustainability.
Right. Would you be able to give us a number, like how much have you saved by doing something, specific to electricity or water that really sort of helped your bottom line?
Yeah, if you take our Swiss Pro filtered water that we've put in the Fairmont South Tower and Raffles City Convention Centre, we save 7.5 tonnes a year in plastic by having that one initiative. If you take Swissôtel, the Stamford has taken out all the single-use amenity bottles in the bathroom and put pump action in there, and we save 3 tonnes a year of plastic just there. So, they're pretty significant sums. And, do we need to do more? Absolutely, and that's what we're planning from 2023. There'll be a whole new gamut of initiatives coming.
Right, and maybe that's something that we should just be doing and not marketing, right? I found the presentation by Jong Yoon Kim. I don't know if you were here during the Yanoja presentation, where the idea was like, if I as a customer come to your hotel and I use less water, or I use less electricity, or I use whatever, then I actually pay less. So I shouldn't be charged, what do you think of that notion?
I think there's a lot of ways that we can play with incentivizing sustainable behavior. I think we need to think through the associations that we're making. Are we associating sustainability with budget? Are we associating sustainability with luxury? How are we associating that? I think we have to be very careful. We need to think through and test. This is what Booking.com does. We test the right approach when it comes to framing these types of propositions to customers. But I think there are many options for how we pursue that.
What do you think is the best way to incentivize sustainable behavior?
Me? I think it's a great idea. We've actually considered it because I think it'd be a great way to reduce water consumption, which is a challenge for us. And the thing that we're missing is, whilst we measure water, waste, electricity at multiple points throughout our property, we haven't got it right down to the room level yet. And what I'm excited about Internet of Things is changing that, and we'll make that data much more easily accessed, and therefore then you can roll it out in a platform where you can provide those incentives for guests. We're not yet there, and there's a little bit of expense, but that stuff's getting cheaper.
But it's a good endpoint, right?
It's a great endpoint, yeah.
And Brenda, how do you think a company like EY could incentivize sustainable behavior?
Yeah, I think probably we won't use that word incentivize. Probably we use maybe different ways, like gamification method, that concept. It's some sort of way to try to get your travelers on board the journey together with you, and to get them interested in what this journey is about.
Right. Okay. So we have a question about, and maybe this one I should ask Marcus. Like, wouldn't it be important to talk about labor shortage in cleaning when talking about sustainability, Marcus?
Yes, well, I mean, all the hoteliers in the room would understand the labour shortage, not just in Singapore, but globally that we have. So how are we dealing with it? Well, I mean, obviously our team are having to work harder. We've also incentivized our guests for every day that they don't have their room cleaned, we'll give them $20 room credit that they can use within food and beverage, within the spa, with the laundry, so that they can use that elsewhere. And we get quite good uptake from that, and so the guest is getting something back for doing the right thing by the environment as well.
So you're incentivizing the customer.
Basically.
Okay. So we have a question, and I know you mentioned the research actually that people claim that they're willing to pay more for sustainability, even though maybe we think they should actually pay less. How do you think we can get more people on board? And is that really the case in reality, that people are willing to pay more for sustainability?
Ooh, several questions in one.
I know.
I think, I mean, again, like I said, we're starting with having these properties be identifiable for customers. Sustainability is not single-faceted, so we have to tap into the elements of sustainability that customer actually cares about. Because some care more about the environment, some care more about the economic indicators. We need to display all of those. And then when it comes to actually seeing if customers are willing to pay more, I think we need to continue to test how that information is actually being displayed to them, what will actually create that behavior change. But there's a lot of work to do there to really see what that is. But first we need to increase the supply. We have 150,000 properties on Travel Sustainable now, almost, which is amazing. But that's very small if you look at the overall supply, so we need to continue to grow it. And then we can really see how to best get those customers to book.
Okay, so let's look to the future, and what is the innovation that you're most excited about in sustainability that could really make a difference? Marcus, what is the biggest innovation?
Well, I mean, the current one that I'd really like to see, I keep banging on about, is aquaponics and hydroponics. But what I think we will see in the next 5 years is different, more sustainable products being used for batteries. And those batteries that are going to be used to automate vehicles around the world. Because currently, if everyone had an electric car, and they wanted to power that electric car and electricity, there's not enough electricity in the world. So, and the batteries that we currently use are not sustainable. So I think we'll see more sustainability
So
there.
batteries. Okay, Brenda?
I think there will be more. We talk about virtual, hybrid, and talk about in-person events. Hybrid, virtual, they are here and they are here to stay as well. So I don't think that will really go away. We could see a high pent-up demand, for the rest of the year, but things we feel probably would stabilize a little bit more, by the time it comes to next year or so on and so forth. So I think the hybrid and virtual concept will continue to be, leading the way.
It will come back when things stabilize. That's what you're saying, the proportion of virtual, hybrid, and physical. All right.
Electrification of transport for me.
Electrification,
Yeah, I mean,
okay.
which is not dissimilar to what Marcus
Right.
was saying. One other thing which I'd already touched on was the Internet of Things, providing data access through so you can measure. The thing that we're missing with sustainability
Measurements.
is being able to measure stuff
Yeah.
and getting good data on it. So,
Okay.
yeah.
Danielle?
Totally agree with the measurement. For me, it's all of the innovations that are happening in aviation as well. We haven't talked tons about it, but
Yeah.
I think we've taken a bit of an approach here where we're saying we're just not going to solve flying. There's many who don't take that approach. We need to. There's several solutions: sustainable aviation fuel, hydrogen, hybrid aircrafts, electric aircrafts. Let's actually get those functioning at the scale that we need, and we have something here.
All right, so we're going to wrap up with one word answer, all right? So most overused word.
Green.
Green,
Yeah, eco.
eco, sustainability,
Pivot.
pivot. Least understood
Are you a
word.
Friends
Least
fan?
understood word, Danielle. Least understood word.
Net zero.
Net zero.
Can you go on and I'll think about mine?
Brenda?
I think it's also sustainability.
Sustainability, yeah. I'd say that as well,
Sustainability?
yeah.
Leadership.
Leadership. One word that should be used more.
Nuance.
Nuance.
Regenerative, because a lot of people are talking about regenerative, which is actually then having a positive impact rather than just being sustainable. So.
Okay.
Make a change.
Yeah.
Make a change. Okay. Marcus?
Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Two
Thank you.
words, but
All right.
very important.
Well, thank you, Danielle. What's your name again? Sorry, Andrew. Brenda and Marcus. I'm just kidding. Thank you so much. Thank you for that discussion.
Thank you.